In this week's review, we're going to take a look at Starsky and Hutch, a car combat game that was developed by Mind's Eye Productions, published by Empire Interactive, and was released on the PS2, Xbox and Gamecube in June of 2003. But before we get started, I just wanted to say that if you do like this video, please hit the like button, as it really does help the channel. If you're looking for more videos like this, then please hit the subscribe button, and if you've played this game yourself, I'd love to hear your thoughts, so comment down below. Now let's move on to the review. Based on the well-known TV series from the 70s, this game is centered around the crime-fighting adventures of the two police detectives from California, and the plot of the game is broken up into seasons and episodes just like the show. Each mission is one episode, play enough of those and you'll finish the season, catching whatever bad guy you were after for that season's story. However, saying that this game has a story is a bit of a stretch. I mean, there are cutscenes and dialogue to connect one mission to the next, but I'd be lying if I said that any of it mattered. I think there are two main reasons for this. The first is that all of the missions are almost identical, and the second is that the overall presentation is clearly one that was made on a budget. There's an argument to make that the design of this game was a stylistic choice, but I'm willing to bet making the cutscenes like this may have just been the cheapest option for the developer. But hey, at least they got one of the voices from the actual show, Antonio Fargas, aka Huggy Bear, to narrate the game for them.
It seems like this punk was just stealing cars. For who? He wasn't saying. Maybe a visit to the courthouse will help him remember.
In terms of gameplay, this is a weird review, because the developers of this title are perfectly entitled to say that I didn't play this game the way they intended, and possibly the best way to play Starsky and Hutch. So each mission, as I said earlier, is basically the same. You drive around Bay City, chasing bad guys, shooting at their vehicles, slowly chipping away at their car's health until they crash, then you put them in handcuffs and the mission is over. Now, if you're playing by yourself, then you actually control both characters, Starsky the driver and Hutch the shooter. To drive around, you hold down the X button and speed around town, and to shoot, you wait for the not-so-great lock-on system to line up properly before you take your shot. The interesting part is that you can play this as a co-op game, and each player will take on one of these roles, potentially making the game a little more fun. However, you can even take it a step further than that, as Starsky and Hutch is apparently compatible with both steering wheel and light gun peripherals, meaning one of you could literally be driving and the other could literally be shooting. I won't lie, this does sound entertaining for at least a couple of missions, and I'd love to know if this is the only game in history that uses a light gun and a steering wheel, but sadly these fun features do not change the core experience, which is unbelievably repetitive. I can empathise with the fact that using this TV show may not have given the developers a ton of material to work with. On paper, the concept of a co-op car combat game isn't a bad one, it's just, it clearly limited them so much that it sort of feels like you're playing a series of minigames from a more ambitious action game. There's some good ideas put in place, such as having primary and secondary objectives, along with mission scores and medals to add some replayability. It also has power-up items like increased speed, damage and handling to give you something else to shoot at other than the one or two cars in front of you. Finally, there's the more explosive or spectacular moments, some scripted and some optional, which mostly result in something blowing up or you driving over a ramp. The shame here is that these moments kind of fall flat and they're only entertaining when they go wrong. Something I've seen a lot since running this channel is games that have a great foundation of gameplay that lack that little extra layer of features, mechanics and big moments to take it to the next level. Starsky and Hutch is somehow the reverse, a lot of interesting additions to a game that doesn't control that well and is a bit too shallow to be engaging.
Hey, Starsky, watch the traffic!
The graphics on display are sort of a mixture of not so bad and could have used a bit more work. To be fair, you're moving around so fast a lot of the time that it would be hard to notice how basic everything looks up close, but the red and white Gran Torino looks sharp enough, and our heroes don't look dreadful, even though their mouths don't move when they talk. I suppose the biggest blemish here is the draw distance, which you can't help but notice as buildings pop into view out of the blue fog. In fact, it's clear that the game is struggling to keep everything running, as I saw the frame rate drop quite often, and not just when things were blowing up, which suggests to me even more that money was certainly tight on this project. The best phrase to summarise the presentation here is bare minimum, and that applies to the audio too. The sound effects, the soundtrack and the voice work are all passable, but largely unnoticeable. Nothing sticks out as awful, nor does it stick out as awesome. In some ways you have to cut the developers a little slack, because it's not exactly easy getting everyone who took part in a show that aired 40 years ago to come back and take part in a game, and to be honest, I've never seen the show, so I can't even tell you if the replacements are good enough, but hey, they sound good to me.
Okay, read him his rights, Hutch. Anything you might want to say, loser?
Starsky and Hutch was clearly made with limited money and in limited time, and I hope it was sold as a budget game because there isn't enough here to justify paying full price. It's a great example of good ideas being executed poorly, and sadly, what is possibly the only game in history to use both light guns and steering wheels when largely unnoticed. It's a game that underwhelms in the places where it matters. The core experience here just isn't up to par, and while I've played much worse, I can't really recommend you pick this up. However, if you and a friend invest in a PS2, a copy of this game, a steering wheel and a light gun, I hope you have more fun than I did.